Hi, folks. It's the afternoon of December 8th as I'm coming to you today. I want to thank everybody for joining me once again on these weekly newsletters. First, I want to say thank you so much to everybody that joined us in Seattle over the weekend. It was another sold-out workshop, and the energy there and the atmosphere was absolutely wonderful. I had some comments from a person that they had been to, probably about their fourth one. And they said that things are shifting and changing. The energy was so positive, and what they're receiving from it has been so beneficial. What I'm doing at some of the workshops, I create a Facebook page for each of the workshops. And you can actually go to what is called Seattle Workshop, the Sedona Connection, and you can see some of the comments that the other people are making. Now, having said that, I do not have any more workshops scheduled except one more on January 9th here in my home in Sedona. I'm going to do something. I will not be posting the registration for Sedona until later in this week, but I need to ask something. This is my fifth workshop that I've had in Sedona, and when I open it up for scholarship seating, I always take them on first come, first serve as it comes in. But the last time I had a workshop here in Sedona, we sold out in 4 days, and we sell out with 120 people in Sedona. That's the highest attending ones that I have. And there were a lot of people that were disappointed that they wanted to pay full fare, the full rate, and they were not able to attend. So this is what I'm going to do, because this is my fifth time. Many of you have had many opportunities to come here. I want to give the opportunity for people to come that need to plan well in advance. So I'll be posting the registration for Sedona about 4 weeks in advance. I am not going to open up registration for scholarships until about the last 10 days. So please do not send me a scholarship request until I send out a newsletter saying that the scholarship seats are now open. I want to do that because I wanted to give an opportunity for people to come here and experience what is here. You know, that at the workshops I share with people about the wonder of this place, the magic of this place. And it truly is shifting and changing. I've had guests come here to Sedona over the last month and a half, and every one of them, when they come, they'd spend some time, we'd be on their vacations or whatever, they're just stunned, I think is the appropriate term to use. They feel the shift, they feel the difference, they feel the energy of this place. I had this one woman, I took her out in my car, and for almost an hour she was just in tears. And she was saying, every single one of my chakras within me are just totally on fire. I've never experienced this anywhere else like this. Why is that? As we're going through the shift in the energy change here on the planet, what it also means that here in Sedona, the energy is shifting and becoming even stronger. Sedona is a healing center. People come here, but you need to know right up front, and I've said this very many times, if you come here surrendering and expecting and looking forward to wonderful healing, that's what you receive. If you come here bringing your problems here and aren't willing to surrender those, then the energy of this place will amplify the problems. Some people can't handle this place because they aren't in the place of surrendering to allow that healing work to happen within them. Well, that's the magic and the wonder of Sedona. That's why I call my business here and everything I do called the Sedona Connection. I'm very deeply connected to this place, and I love my home here. And when you come here, you'll be able to understand that. So, okay, that's enough about that. For the January 9th, I'll be posting the registration on that later this week. But this week on the video, I'm going to keep it fairly short, and I'm going to talk about something that is at the very core root of why I believe what I believe and where I come from. I've told you many times I have a background where I had a master's degree in biblical studies, and my bachelor's degree was in religion. I've been around various forms of spirituality now for close to 40 years. I understand the importance of having what I call a spiritual development in your life. And I don't necessarily consider that to be what I call an attachment to a specific religion, which is predominantly Christian that we have here in the United States, nor to a specific atmosphere or a specific theology based around that. I used to have that. I used to be that way. I was taught that, and I believed what I was taught for close to 30 years of what came out of my seminary training. But down inside, what I also had was this very, very strong wonder and amazement for the Scriptures. That's why I chose to get a master's degree in biblical studies, because I've always had this very deep love for the Scriptures. But I also was taught, as so many of us, that we, in the evangelical arenas, that we considered the Bible was the authoritative Word of God. I followed that for close to 30 years. I believed that. I had benefits from that. But I also had to accept that there was some very deep conflict down inside and was creating some problems for me, and I couldn't quite understand what it was. And it wasn't so much around what I was taught as much I was in a sense of saying, there's a duality that is happening here. There seems to be two different sides to the story. And if God is God, how can we have a God that is basically both totally love, but yet we see him portrayed in the Old Testament as this vengeful, warful, bloodthirsty God? That just didn't seem to quite line up with me, and I always had some problems for that. Underneath all of that, and I'm not ashamed to say this is all, has always been this very, very deep love for Jesus since I was 5 years old. Well, when I went through a situation about 6 to 8 years ago in my life, when I went through what was called my dark night of the soul, and I went through a very crisis period of time, I began to ask a lot of questions. And it was that during that period of time that that I was introduced to the book that I has considered has the most absolute wonderful impact on my life, and that is, A Course in Miracles, but the book itself was Disappearance of the Universe by Gary Renard. Now, I'm going to share with you, because you hear me talking a lot about A Course in Miracles, and I'm going to explain to you where I come from, why I believe that, and how in many ways things haven't really shifted. I didn't abandon where I was before. I actually fulfilled it even more. Because you see, I am more in love and deeper in love with Jesus ever in my life. I understand who he is. I understand the master that he is. I understand the power that he presented and the love that he had for humanity. And I follow that, and I trust that, and I believe that. I did that for close to 30 years, how I was taught in my church background and in my theology training that I had, and as I was a minister myself with Foursquare churches for a number of years. But I always said there was something in that wasn't quite right. I ended up leaving the ministry, and that's when I went into politics, and I went through a season of that in my life. And out of that came some adjustments and changes within myself. When I was introduced to the book Disappearance of the Universe, it was predominantly because of the theme of miracles, of forgiveness. Forgiveness has always been a very strong part of my life. And I heard the author Gary Renard on a podcast, and all he was doing was talking about forgiveness. And I thought, I better get that book and take a look at it. I bought it in the Audible version the first time. And I listened to it inaudibly, and it was really challenging me, and it was so deep, it was very hard for me to grasp it all. And when we came to the very, very end of the book, something happened. The very end is very strong, and it's very dramatic of what takes place. And for me, I just broke down and I began to weep. It was a very deep weeping that was coming from deeply within my soul, because I knew there was a connection that was taking place there and something was happening. And that went on for me for almost 5 minutes. And it was a very cleansing, cathartic type of an experience that I went through. Something broke within me. I decided at that time that I needed to go ahead and to purchase the hard copy of the book. And when I started reading Disappearance of the Universe, it was not an easy book for me to comprehend. There were times that I would take an hour just to go through one page. But I was determined I was going to try to grasp that as well as I could. And I went through it, and it began to change my life. And after that, I would go through some other things, and I got introduced to A Course in Miracles. And I have to admit, it was really hard for me to understand A Course in Miracles in the beginning. It's not something that is simple to understand because it's the way that it is written. It's written what is called in a holographic form. It repeats the themes over and over again on a repetitive basis, and it does it in a specific way. But here's what you will come to understand about A Course in Miracles and why Disappearance of the Universe is so strongly connected to it. In the book Disappearance of the Universe, Gary Renard has these two ascended masters that begin to show up to him, and they appear to him over a period of 9 years. And what they are doing is helping him understand A Course in Miracles from a linear perspective versus a holographic as the Course is written. These two ascended masters in the book, their names are Arten and Persa, and they are in their past lives were two of the original disciples of Jesus, Thomas and Thaddeus. And yes, Thomas, who wrote the Gospel of Thomas. And out of that, you begin to see what really took place and how our Bible became, how it was put together, and how there was in many ways what we thought something was supposed to be really great about our Bible, but in reality it was put together as a political tool. And the New Testament predominantly does not necessarily follow the teachings of Jesus. It comments on him, it gives illustrations of him, it quotes him. But the New Testament is first and foremost the theology of the Apostle Paul. which is very different because, see, it's still very dualistic in its teaching. And when we come to understand what life is all about, down at the very bottom root core for all of us, it's about going home, getting back to heaven, getting back to God. And in heaven, everything is one. Everything is connected. It's all about oneness. You can't take a duality consciousness into heaven. And what the Course in Miracles does, at its very root core, it says it is pure, non-dualistic in its teaching. It is the only thing that is out there that does that, and it does not compromise on that one bit. That's why I'm drawn to it so strongly. That's why I'm drawn to its teaching so strongly. And what you also want to know, it is the true teachings of Jesus. Because you see, it was Jesus that began to appear to a woman by the name of Helen Schuckman, and she heard this voice, and it came to her for over a period of 8 years. And it is there in the Course that Jesus says, this is who I truly am, this is what I truly taught, this is what I truly value. It says, I do not place myself into the Bible, which is very dualistic in its teaching, that talks about the need of a crucifixion, which is the need to be punished. He said there was no need for that. I came to show you how to overcome that, to rise above that, and that I came to show you that the God of heaven is nothing but pure love, nothing but love. And a God of love would never require a sacrifice and punishment to appease him, ever. That's why the teachings there are pure, non-dualistic. And what Disappearance of the Universe does, it helps you understand that in a linear fashion. Others have been quoted as saying, if you read Disappearance of the Universe, it will take 20 years off of you understanding the Course. It's going to take a while, but the Course in Miracles is something that you need to be ready for it. But when you are, it will totally shift and change your life, because you will start to line up with the true teachings of the Master. If you have a love for Jesus, if you have a love for God, if you have a love for oneness, if you have a love for how this world really works and you want to truly understand it, then you'll want to identify with that. It's designed to be totally independent, an independent study course. It's not designed to be a religion. It's not designed to develop cults and gurus. It's not designed to develop what he called these special social, course teachers. It's designed for you as an individual on your individual path and walk for God, to develop that for yourself at your time, in your path, and in your way. It'll speak to you that way when you allow it to do it. Now, what I said, obviously, the first book one, this one is here. As I'm looking on camera, it's kind of a bit backwards. Disappearance of the Universe by Gary Renard. It will lay a foundation for you. But there's a couple other books that Gary has since written this one. This was a process of 10 years in its development. Artin and Persa started showing and turning up to Gary in 1992, 23 years ago. And they are still showing up and talking to him. After this book, Disappearance, was published in 2002, then the next book came out, and it's called Your Immortal Reality. And the subtitle is about breaking the cycle of birth and death. It's about breaking the cycle of reincarnation. It explains, why do we have to keep coming back lifetime after lifetime? And the vast majority of all of us have been here hundreds, if not well over 1,000 lifetimes here on Earth. And it's what I talked about a couple weeks ago, about undoing the ego mind. Until you undo that ego mind, you're just on another merry-go-round, on another trip, and another experience. And you'll have to come back and do it over and over again until you understand the need to undo the ego mind. Now, the latest book had come out about 2 years ago. But this book, if I remember right, was 6 to 7 years in the making. And it's called Love Has Forgotten No One by Gary Renard. Each one will begin to take you into a little more greater depth. I've been through Disappearance 8 times. I'm now reading Your Immortal Reality again for about the 5th time. I've been through Love Has Forgotten No One 3 times. I've never had this experience anywhere in my life, thinking that I could read these books over and over and over again. And every time I would learn something more, until I began to understand the nature of A Course in Miracles. It's designed to be repetitive. It's designed to be a discipline. It's designed so that it will change your life, and it's not just a pleasurable read. It is designed to help you and me individually totally change the behavior patterns of how we think. And when you do that, your life begins to change. I use A Course in Miracles as the foundation of my life because I'm a deep, deep, deep lover of Yeshua, Jesus. His real name, actually the real true pronunciation of it is Yeshua. But we Anglicize it and call him Yeshua, and then the real other English part of that is Jesus. But his real name is Yeshua. I have a very deep love for him. I've always had that since I was a little boy. And that just grows and becomes stronger and stronger. Because when I allow him to be my master, when I allow him to be my teacher, then my life it takes on a new meaning in it for me in how I live my life. Every one of us, in fact, in the Course in Miracles, there's what is called a section called the Teacher's Manual. And it says we are all teachers. We are all teachers and all students at different points, at different times in our lives, to each other, if not just a teacher to ourselves. Because that's what life is about. Life is about growth, development, understanding, and in the very end, it's all about one thing: going back home. Going back home to God. Going back home to heaven. Because inside, our soul calls us to that. Our soul will always call us to that, very deeply inside. And when you get in touch with that part of your soul, deep down inside, you get to come to the point where you understand the longing that is there. Now, I haven't talked much about RVGCR stuff recently because I've actually been asked to not do that. That's a very good sign. And there are things that are developing that are very positive behind the scenes. You may have seen some of the reports coming out from some of the other writers, some of the other Dharma gurus, and some of the stuff they're saying is right on. Some of it is being very exaggerated. I'm not going to go into that. I'm not going to debate all that stuff. It is what it is, and it's going to be what it's going to be. But I have said to you very, very clearly that you would want to connect with what I'm doing, because there are some, now that I'm reading it, I can't say that. I can't go that there. I have to respect what I call the blackout that has been put on me. But I share things at workshops I just cannot share on the internet. If you haven't been to my workshop, you are going to want to come to the one January 9th in Sedona. You really do want to be there. I don't say that about me making money. I don't need to do this to make money. If I wanted to make money, there's other things I could do to make a lot more money. I do that because of the love that I have for Yeshua. I do that because of the love that I have for you. I do that because of the love that I have for humanity. And I do that because it's what I love to do. I believe this is a divine assignment in my life. On my Facebook page, I've started making daily comments on the daily workbook lessons. In the course, there are 365 workbook lessons. And I'll just give a couple sentences of comments for the daily lessons. And many of you are beginning to comment and say, thank you very much. I'm actually really enjoying doing that, and I love doing it. As we come down to the end of the year, on January 1st, once again, we'll start all over again with lesson 1. And it's going to really kind of blow you away because it's going to challenge you how you think. It was interesting because I started the workbook lessons at the beginning of the year. And it was a couple days ago, I went back and I re-looked again at the first 10 lessons. And I thought, oh my gosh, I'm seeing that so much differently now than what I saw it at the beginning of the year, almost 12 months ago. So it's a lifestyle. It's a life discipline. Let it be to you whatever you want it to be, not what I tell you it to be, not what others tell you it to be, not what Gary Renard tells you to be. But I do want to make one announcement, and this is something that I'm really pleased that I get to have. You know how much I appreciate that book, Gary Renard, and his wife, Cindy. And I'm not going to spoil what are some of the later books, but both Gary and Cindy carry a very significant aspect to what goes on in the 3 books. Gary and his wife, Cindy, live in the Los Angeles area. And it was a couple weeks ago I started an email communication with Gary. And Gary and Cindy, I want to say thank you very, very much if you're watching this video. Because just before New Year's, I get to go and spend an evening and have dinner with Gary and Cindy. I'm really looking forward to meeting you. And I think both of you understand and you know why, based on some of the comments that I had made. You know what I think? I think we're going to sit down and just laugh and laugh and laugh. We've done that before. And we're going to become acquainted with each other again. And we'll begin to take another step into who we are and how our wonderful, wonderful friend Yeshua, Jay, of what he wants to give in the direction of our lives. I want to thank you. I'm really looking forward to the meeting that I get to have and the dinner that I get to have with the two of you. It's coming into the Christmas season, folks. Enjoy the season. Enjoy it for what it is and what it means to you, whatever it is that's important to you. If you think it's the birth of Yeshua, then fine, that's okay. Celebrate it as that. You don't need to take it absolutely literally, because we know that December 24th is not the literal birth date of Jesus. The history and the development of it tells us otherwise. But it's still understanding the concept. It's still understanding who he is and what he came and the gifts that he brought to us. He was the master, and he still is. And he still lives within us as we let him do that. Learn to fall in love with that, and it will absolutely change your life. And when all these funds come forward, then all of a sudden it'll take on a whole different perspective of what we thought it was. Thank you very much, folks. Would love to have you joining me on the radio program tomorrow night. I love all of you very much. Thank you very much. Okay, bye-bye.